and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and in this video we are going to implement the sign-in flow with Google. So in the last video we did the sign up and login, and then we added animation. So in this video we will be implementing the Google sign-in for that. And to implement Google sign-in we need a couple of things. Okay, so to sign in with Google we need to set up a Google console where basically we will be requesting the Google to fetch the user information and allow us to sign in through that. And we also need to set up our like configuration for the project that we've been creating. So the first thing that I need over here is that I need to add a couple of dependencies, and those dependencies are going to be these three dependencies. So this is basically the credential manager that we'll be using, and there will be a play services related to that, and then we have this identity Google ID library. So these three um, libraries are there that we need to use, and once you do that you need to sync that. Okay, the next thing is that you will go to Google console. So basically this is going to be cloud.console.cloud.google.com, and this is basically where you will be creating your project like we used to do in Firebase. You can do it through Firebase as well, but I want to directly create something from here. So from over here, normally when you get over here, if you don't have any project, it will show you a blank section from over here. But right now I am on this demo project, so that's why I'm getting this. And what you need to do is that you get over here and then you can click on this new project from there, and then it will create this new project for you, and you can name this project. Let's say I want to name this Food Hub. Okay, so this is the project that I've created, and then you can just create that. And once you create that, it will do a couple of things. It will set up a couple of things for you over here. So let's just wait for that, and once that is done, you have like these things ready. So now what we will do is that we will switch to that project. So you will go over here, and then from over here you will select this Food Hub. Okay, once you set up this, like when you click on that, you will get something like this. Again the similar screen, and from there let's click on this API and services. And once you click on these API services, you will get all these different kind of APIs list that you have that you can enable for your project. But before doing anything like that, we need to go to our Auth consent screen. This is basically a screen where we need to define like what kind of user are there that are going to use it, right? So just click on that, create. You need to define an app name for that. For us, the app name is Food Hub. So this is Food Hub. Supporting email, for me I'm using this the default that I have. If you have a logo of your project, you can add it. If you have some other policy links and services link, you can add these. And you'll also need a developer contact information, and that is also something like that. Okay, once you do that, you can just save it. And once you save that, this is basically, you don't need to have anything. If you want to add test user, you can add them. If not, it's totally fine. And then once you do that, it will be something like this. Okay, so now you have this constant section completed. The next thing that you need to do is that you need to go to credential manager, and you need to set up some credentials for your system. So the first credential that I need is that I'll be creating it for my Android side, and you need to go to, so, and for that you need to go to create credential and click on this Auth client ID. From over here you can select Android, right? So since I mentioned that I need it for Android, I'll be clicking this on Android, name it this. And now over here in the package name, you'll need the package name of your project. So just get over here into the build.gradle file, and over here you can get this application ID from here, right? So you can just copy that and paste it over here. Okay, so now this is the project done, and now the next thing is this SHA, right? So if you are like, if you are trying to do it for the for a debug section implementation, you can get it pretty easily. But if not, you'll have to find that production key store for yourself, and then create it through that, this SHA that I'm gonna create. And normally if you are, since we are just testing for now, we don't need the production one. We can just go over here to Android Studio, and in the right section you will see this Gradle section, right? So just click on that Gradle, and inside this Gradle you will see the second button action, that icon that says execute Gradle task, right? So once you click on that, it will give you some options. I basically ran this recently, so I'm getting this. If you are not getting this, all you need to do is that you need to type in something like this. So once you run this Gradle signing report and press enter, it will run some basically run the script, and then from there you will get this. So you need to make sure the variant that you are getting and the path of that key store. So make sure to not use the debug test or something like that. Make sure to use the debug only config, and from there you need to copy the SHA-1. So from here I'll just copy the SHA-1 and I'll paste it over here. So once I do that, all I need to do is just click on create. So this is the one that I have created for Android, right? And one more auth ID I require, and that is going to be the web application. And the reason I need it for the web application is because that is how the screen, like the Google API or the SDK that I'm going to use will use and allow me to sign in, right? So once you like create all these two, all you need to do is that you need to copy the client ID of your web. Okay, so make sure to copy the client ID of your web, and now we'll get back to our code side. Okay, so now we are at the code level and we don't have any sort of implementation or any sort of things. All we need to do is that we need to implement the Google sign in, Google or Facebook setup that we have, right? So what are we going to do? The thing is that we will be going over here. Okay, so over here let's create a package and call it auth. Okay, and inside that auth you can call it Google auth UI provider, something like that. Okay, so I have just created this class that I have. Okay, so this class is going to help me sign in with Google. Okay, so inside what I'm gonna say is that I'm gonna say sign in. Okay, this is basically a function, and that is going to return a suspend function. Now the sign in is supposed to return something, like it should return some sort of response to me. So what I'm gonna do is that I'll get over here into this model section and then create a new class, and now let's call it a Google account, right? And it is going to be a data class. And overall, if you look into this, this is basically a class that will be something like this. It will have a token that is a Google token. It will have a display name and a profile URL if there is any. So this is basically some of the things that we are requiring from that. And I've also created this constant class that contains the ID that I basically copied from my Google console for the web client ID. Make sure to copy the web client ID, not the Android one, right? And that is basically the one that I used over here, and then I'll get over here back. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is that I'll say this Google account, this is basically supposed to return a Google account. Okay, so now that is one thing. The first thing now, what I need to do is that I need to create the credentials, right? So for that, what I'm gonna do is that I'll call it while creds is equals to credential manager. So I don't have a credential manager, right? So for that, what I'm going to say is that I'll take two things. One is going to be, let's call it activity context. That is a context, right? And the second one is going to be credential manager, and that is going to be the Android X credential managers. Okay, so these are the two things that we require over here, and then we will be saying credential manager dot get, and that is going to be activity context first thing, and then the second one is going to be the Google context. So since there is like we don't have that, we need to create that request. For that, let's just call it get credential request. Okay, now this function is basically we don't have that function, so let's just create that function and make it something like this, and that is going to be get credential request. Okay, and that is going to be get credential request dot builder. Okay, and then we don't need these kind of things because these are there. And okay, now we have this thing, right? And then we will be saying add credential option, and that is going to be the section where I'll be adding that option where we will be linking the web client ID. So for that, we are going to say Google sign in that is going to be sign in option, something like this. So yeah, get sign in with Google option. And this builder basically required this key, and that key is basically the user constant, sorry, the basically the key is the one that I copied when we created the web client ID. So I have stored that in the constant. So for that, I'm gonna say Google server client ID or something like this. Okay. Okay, so once you do that, this means now this one step is done, and now you can get the credential out of it. Okay. So now this means the user will see a dialog, and then from there user can sign in with the Google. And now once user sign in with the Google, you'll get some sort of credential. And now out of those credential, you need to get some sort of information, right? And that information is going to be something like the name of the user, or the profile image, or the token that the Google is created for that. So for that, let's just do something like this. We'll create a function, and let's call it handle success, or handle credentials. Okay, and then we will be basically requiring the credentials from there that basically we get. That is going to be this. Okay, we don't need this for now, let's just get rid of that. But yeah, we got these creds, and then it is gonna return a Google account as promised. Then over here we can just call it something like this with the creds. So once you do that, this means now this function will be called, and this function is supposed to uh, handle all these. Okay, so now over here what we are gonna do is that we'll say if the creds is custom credentials. Okay, and the second thing is that we need to say that creds dot type is equals to Google is equals to Google ID token credentials dot Google ID token credential. Okay, so this means that we will be setting something like this, which means now we have this credential as the Google token ID, and then from over here you can define, like, get whatever you want. For example, you have this ID token, you can get it. For display name, you have display, and since it's a nullable, you can just replace it with this thing. And let's say if there is any other thing that you need, you can also get that. So that's pretty much, so basically that's how all these data will be required, right? And you, what you can do is that from there, what one more thing is that maybe we can just print that whatever the data that we got, so that we can see if basically the data that we requested is something. So basically we can see what exactly is there in the data. So now that is pretty much what it is. If there is, like, if there is no other type, it will just throw a null, which is fine because we are not using something like this. Now we have this thing, and now we need to use this. Okay, so the first thing is that where do we want, let's say, let's implement that into our sign in request, sign in section first, because that is where we have a view model and we can use it. We will implement a generic functionality for that, but let's say for now, let's just do it in the auth section in the login screen. Okay, so we'll get over here into this sign in view model, and now you can see that you have these functionality that is for sign in click and then sign up click. We don't have the functionality for Google click, so let's create a function and call it on Google sign in clicked. And then over here, it's not something like this that we should be doing. What we need to do is that we can create a couple of things. So the first thing that we need from over here is that we need a context. Okay, so that is the one thing that we have created. Now, but the next thing that we need is that we need this Google Auth provider, which is again a class that you can just create it over here. So we'll just create something at this level. I'll say provider is equals to something like this. Okay, okay, so now we have this Google Auth provider that is there, and then from over here what we can do is that we can create a sign in functionality, and then it require a context. Along with that, it also require a credential manager. So for that, we can do is that you can create a credential manager dot create, that is the one, and that it requires a context, so you can just pass that context into it. Now once you do that, this means that now you have this auth section done. And then just to be on the safe side, what you can do is that you can set up this loading state when user click on the sign in. And once user is done with like this, you can also call it a response. Response is equals to this, and now it's just happening. Okay, now if response not equals to null, let's say, now in that case we will be passing a success so that user can do something. And then let's say we navigate that at that time to the user, else we can just return an error message saying that something went wrong, so something like this. Okay, now this functionality should be called from somewhere, which is not yet called. So we'll go to the sign in screen, and over here you see that we have this Google social button, and the second option is for Google. So over here what I'm gonna say is that I'm gonna say on sign up clicked, sorry, on Google sign in click, and it requires a context. So for that, what you can do is that you can create a context is equals to local context dot current, and you can just pass that into it. Okay, so that's most probably gonna help me with all these things. Let's just run this code and see if whatever we have implemented is actually working. So I'm gonna just play that and see if this works. Okay, so we have this. Now let's just go to the login screen, and this in login screen, click on this Google button, and you can see that it started this loader, and it shows me this dialog that has this already email logged in. So we'll just click on that and see if it logs me in. And now you can see that it successfully logged me in, which means my login was successful. And for our understanding, we can also check the logs that I shared over here. So that is one thing, right? And now the thing is that we have not completed the login flow yet, because we want to store that Google token in our code base so that we can get a food app or JWT as well, because this token that Google provide us is not valid to be used. Okay. So to do that, what we need to do is that we need to go to our backend code. And okay, so I'll get over here into my Google code, and sorry, backend code. And now inside this backend code, you will see that we'll have a couple of things that we need to do. And inside this auth routes, you will see that we have this OAuth for Google and Facebooks that we can use. Let's say this is OAuth, and then we can provide a token that is basically the one we will use the provider that can be Google or Facebook in term of that, and then based on that it will get the necessary information out of it. But one more thing that we need to do over here is that we need to get over here into this Google Auth config, and this client ID and client secret needs to be updated based on this that we created this web client, right? So we'll just get over here into this web client, and you will see the client ID and the client secret over here. So just make sure to copy them and then place them inside this code, so that the backend knows from where we need to uh, get this. So what I'm going to do is that I'll just copy paste these. Okay, so now this is done, and what we need is that we need a post call that contains where is that? So we need a post call that is auth/OAuth, and then we need to pass a provider and a token. So these are the two things that we need to define, and also we need to define a type, since we are just using, for now it's for a customer, so for now it will be just customer. But these two things are important. We need to pass the token and the provider. That is important. So let's just do that. So we'll get back to our Android code, and then as you know, we need a request object. So inside this, we'll get to model, create a new object class and call it OAuth request. Okay, and this OAuth request is going to be a data class again, okay, data class, and then its data class is contain it should contain a token, and it should also take a provider as well. So these are the two things that are important. And now we'll go to the view model that we have over here, like this place at this point, right? So now at this point we have this response object that contains the necessary information, and since this is a Google, what I'm gonna do is that I'll create a request object straight away, and let's call it request is going to be OAuth request, and then this thing is the token is going to be the response token, and the provider is going to be Google. Now this is done, and now the next thing is going to be food API dot OAuth. And since we don't have that functionality, what we need to do is that we need to go to the food app, and then over here along with the sign in and sign up, what you need to do is that you can define the auth slash o auth. That is the endpoint, and that is going to be this, and that is the request object is going to be auths, right? And then the response is going to be same for this. So just make sure that this is the correct endpoint that you use. So now over here you have this OAuth, and then you will just pass the request object, and then from there, now what you can do is that you can call it response is equals to something like this, or let's call it res. Nice. Now if res or something like this, okay, and we don't need this section over here. So now we have pretty much all the flows ready. The first thing is that when it is successful, it will check for the token and the Google token, and then that Google token will be passed to the database, and then from database we will be getting this response, and that response should contain a token that what we need, right? So what I'm gonna do is that I log that token as well, so that we are sure that okay, this was the token that was received. Now let's just rerun the code again. This time when I run this, hopefully we will be getting the request. And also make sure to run the code, since my code is not running yet, this backend is not running, so you need to run that first as well. Okay, so let's just run the code and see what it does. Okay, so now the simulator is running. We'll go to the go login screen, click on the Google. We got this dialog, and as soon as I set up, it just logged me in and it gave me that token as well. So now I can check that by setting over here. Now you can see that I got this token. This means now what happened first is that first we requested Google to let us sign in the user, and once the Google signed in us, we send that token to the backend, and the backend basically requested Google to get the relative information based on that token, and it entered that value into the database and then returned us that user. So this is basically how the Google implementation will work. And in the next video, what we will do is that we will implement the Facebook, and then the authentication flow will be done. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please like the video, comment down below, and share the video with your friends. For similar content, you can subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Instagram, and if you have any queries, you can join my Discord server where we discuss different kind of things. So thank you so much for watching the video. Have a great day. Bye.